in terms of whether they would consider our token to be a utility or whether certain parts or mechanisms of our token could be considered a security. Regarding the banking situation in Switzerland, I think some places were named, like Estonia or Lithuania. A lot of the cryptocurrency exchanges are also there, and a lot of ICOs have done some banking there. It's then just the question, how well is that money integrated into international finance, right? Is it considered offshore or not? And so for us, it was we actually didn't. So we are a Swiss company and we're based in Switzerland, but we looked at all sorts of different jurisdictions, and for us it was important that we're in one of the big financial markets, which Switzerland certainly is. Regarding the banking, this is actually driven by the banks in Switzerland and the risk management of the banks, so shutting down or freezing of accounts at the moment. Initially, some of the Swiss banks did some of the very large ICOs, and there has been some concerns raised about that. So banks have taken a step back and are looking if this is really a business that they want to be in. And of course, from the bank's perspective, if you just come with your ICO and put 100 million in a Swiss bank, there's actually negative interest rates, right? So it makes no sense to take on risk for a bank, just to put your money there. And then I think last but not least, there's also a bit of discussion about the tax at some point. So I haven't heard many ICOs talk about this, but certainly next year in any country, right, the tax man will come and ask, okay, so what did you guys do here? So of course, Switzerland traditionally has some very favorable tax treatments. So I think that is also pretty important. And I do expect that to be a central kind of driving factor next year for companies looking to do an ICO. The question is going to be, what is the tax treatment? And just consider this: if you're selling a utility token, so basically you're not selling equity, it's not debt, it's not shares or something. Effectively, you're selling a service or a product, and in almost all countries, you have to pay tax on that. And
very good. Yes, please.
I would like to add one thing, because there is no recipe that Switzerland is good or Singapore is good. I'm drilling into the subject for like the past 6 weeks. So I went to Mexico, to one of the largest, the Ethereum Foundation convention. And when I was flying there, I was totally sure that Switzerland is a place to launch ICO. And when I was coming back, the jurisdiction changed 5 times. So I heard, okay, Singapore, and also Singapore, Panama, Cayman Islands. So it depends on the size of the company and the place you are in. Because if you're a startup of 3 students, talented, that you want to change the world, go for Caymans. There's no reason to go to Switzerland, which is right now over-regulated. Even for the companies like us, we encounter big difficulties in being compliant. So this is one thing. Germany lately, Germany said, okay, we're going to accept ICOs and cryptocurrencies. So it all depends what type of business you want to run. If you really want to be a disruptor, game changer in a way. So it's very dynamic. It changes almost every day. So some countries ban it, like Korea. Some countries say, oh, okay, our neighbor banned it, so we do it. So like in China, so Japan went up, when China banned ICOs. So there are a lot of things which we need to consider. Also, the jurisdiction doesn't cover you from being a security. So, for example, token. When you release a token, it can be in Switzerland or in Singapore could be token with a utility. But in the US, they might consider it if there's a face behind it. If there's a face, like if Apple if Tim Cook is a face of the product of ICO, then it's considered as a guarantee of the financial success. So you need to also be careful about what you're doing, because there's no jurisdiction which says, okay, this is globally covered and you don't have any issues. This is what they also investigate.
Thank you. We're going to have another question about the regulatory, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about usability of that. What do you think the current situation that the world of cryptocurrency is somehow being regulated by people outside of the ecosystem is the right approach? Do you really feel like a centralized way of putting the decisions and the centralized way of thinking about a totally decentralized ecosystem would somehow adapt itself, or you really feel like maybe this ecosystem also have to be internally regulated or somehow try to find its own way without even being related to that? Because when you're touching some topics like taxes, when we're talking about some other topics about the world of, I don't want to call it cryptocurrency, the world of the blockchain, when everything is decentralized, and we also have lots of coins and lots of usability that they are helping with anonymity. So if we're going to have an old school system of recognizing things based on some centralized old school method of collecting data, how do they have to adapt themselves, and do they even have the knowledge in order to regulate a market that is totally unknown to them? So
I think that's an interesting question, and from what I saw, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, we are running an initiative which is basically trying to create standards around anti-money laundering for cryptocurrencies around the world. And so far, we have very good response and very good engagement from the regulators, from market, from people who are like ICOs and etc. So it seems like there's even though that this is, I think this is the only panel on initial coin offering during this, and we are talking only about regulations, which is me being a lawyer and former compliance officer. It's incredible because suddenly the starting point for any business is how we structure the regulations and how we ensure compliance. So I think this is the way to approach this market is changing dramatically. So we see initiatives, and also one of the conversations so which law you're going to apply for something which is truly global, right? So it's probably going to be some renaissance of international law maybe, or arbitrage law. This is something would be which would be probably seen, on the market because, as you said, you can be non-security in Switzerland, but you can be completely security in the US, right? So that's definitely something which is going to be interesting. Yeah.
Good. If any one of you guys have another comment, because I want to go a little bit deeper into the conversation and talk about the usability. We're talking about the idea that, for example, right now we have one currency and we have some specific platforms that everybody knows and everybody know how to compete and how to use it. But when we're talking about, I don't know, like maybe like 3 years, I don't know if anybody knows exactly how many ICOs are going to be in like 2020. Because looking at like what we had in 2016 and what we have in 2017, that would be a very funny number to just talk about what we have in 2020. We're always talking about Golem, with the massive success of like $8 million, and right now if you look at the amount of the investment that they have, up to like $200 million, and as I always say to people, like this is just the beginning. So if you really think about like 2015 and 2016 and 8 million as a phenomenon and 200 million, where do you think the usability of these coins are coming? Like how, I remember at G2A we're talking about like 200 different methods of payment, and they are all somehow are in a way that you can work with all of them. But now think about all of these coins and technologies that they are working parallel to each other, and even the technologies are not somehow internally connected to each other or they can support each other. So how do you see this, I'm just calling it chaotic, not as a way of just putting a disaster, but as a way of lots of people just doing things parallel to each other. How do you think this market is going to be more, again, not from a legal point of view being regulated, but from a practical point?
Okay, so it will be very similar to what happened in the early VCs. So there were like a lot of companies were raising money, especially in Silicon Valley. So like it was very easy, 5 years ago to raise $5, $10, $100 million. Also, referring to the internet bulb, it was even easier. So right now, I think this ICO market is growing very rapidly. It's like no other business I ever seen. So those ICO which were launched 1.5 years ago, they will have to deliver at some point. And there are only few which have a logical sense of being there. So you have 1,200 currencies at the moment, and there are over 300 ICOs. 300, that's different sources because the official 300, upcoming this year 200 more. So imagine how many of those projects will really succeed. So this is one thing. This market will probably will self-regulate because investors will learn how to recognize the good ICO, like our colleague showed us a few slides today. So it will be more towards like a stock exchange, I believe. And the quotes, the amounts of money which were raised, for example, in August, one of my friends raised like about $53 million. It's not possible now. Yeah, you need to really have a good track record, good advisory board, a lot of knowledge behind you, and a really disruptive project to raise more than 10 million. And there are companies across the globe which are already established, and we don't talk about those companies who didn't succeed in ICOs. We only talk about the stars. Yeah, and so I think it's going to be like organically, it's going to self-regulate. The good guys, the people who want to change the world, they will succeed. But the numbers, I think, will go lower generally. But you have stars like Overstock, they want to do $500 million ICO. And the other problem is, okay, you can raise $200 million, $300 million, but if you don't have a really point of doing that, okay, any system, any complicated system can cost like $20 million, $30 million. So what you're going to do with 200, 250, yeah? You're going to spend it for marketing? No. So it becomes to be like you cannot compare it to the real life, yeah? Real business. Because there are, okay, if you create the infrastructure, land-based infrastructure, I don't know, fiber, a lot of things which is consuming a lot of capital, or building roads, okay. But then blockchain, because reason to do, ICO is actually use blockchain, yeah? And the other thing is that there is something different on the IPO scene. You have to treat the crowd properly. The crowd, so John Smith, who invested